Hi folks, Harry here and welcome back to Other Worlds Than These, and today's video is going to be my advice on how to read more, how to read faster, and how to generally read more efficiently. So I've had a lot of people ask me, how do you read so much? I read 127 books in 2020, and so far in 2021, I have already read 20 books as of the 7th of February. So naturally, I get questions from people asking how I have the time to read, how I read so quickly, and generally how I read as much as I do. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of advice about that today. So what I believe is the most important tip to reading more and reading more efficiently is get off your phone. I cannot believe how much time in my day and in everyone's day is spent just mindlessly scrolling through your phone, looking at social media or watching YouTube videos that don't matter to your life. But you could be using that time to read the books that you want to read or the books that you have to read if you're doing it for school. This is something that I've tried to cut down on recently. I have made a mental effort to keep track of my screen time and use that time that I would usually spend scrolling to read a book that I need to or want to read. So the last video that I did was my 12-hour readathon where I just read for 12 hours. It was great. I got over 1,000 pages read and it was absolutely fantastic. And I spent none of that time scrolling, but that was like an awakening for me. It made me realise just how much time I mindlessly spend on my phone, looking at things that will never ever make a difference to my life. And I could have been spending that time reading a fantastic book. So yeah, my first bit of advice is whenever you catch yourself wanting to scroll, or you just think for a moment, I'm scrolling, I'm bored, I don't know what to do, just randomly pick up a book and just start reading it. And if picking up a physical book is a little bit too daunting, read an ebook, download some books onto your phone or your iPad or your Kindle or whatever you're using and scroll through that instead. Just burn through a couple of pages. Even if you just whip out your phone for 2 minutes while you're waiting for your coffee to be made, it's still a little bit of reading, and just getting in a couple of pages makes a lot of difference. My second bit of advice I think is equally as important, and I'm going to start this off with people constantly saying,
I wish I had time to read.
Or, I don't have enough time to read in my day. How do you have so much time?
You have so much spare time. What do you do with your life?
Everyone has time. Everyone can make time. And this links in with my last point. I guarantee everyone, no matter how busy your life is, everyone, for at least a short period of time in their day, mindlessly scrolls, which means that everyone has time to waste their life doing absolutely nothing. So if you want to read more, make books a priority. Maybe not your number one priority, because that might be staying hygienic or remembering to eat, but if you make it a priority, you will constantly be thinking, oh, I should be reading. Dear all of the people who say that they don't have time for reading. Yes, some people may just live a very hectic, busy life, sure. But if you just say, I don't have time to read, you do have time to read. Just make time for it. Deliberately make a mental effort to set maybe an hour aside in your day, 30 minutes, 15 minutes just in your day to just burn through a couple of pages. My third bit of advice is a bit more of a fun one. And this is something that you can do when you're actually reading rather than finding ways and time in your day to read. And this is buddy reading. I absolutely love buddy reading books with my friends. If you don't know what that is for some reason, buddy reading is where 2 or more people read the exact same book at the same time. So you can either do this with one friend, or you can join a book club. And book clubs are absolutely fantastic. And even though I'm not in one, I can see why a lot of people are in them, and I can definitely see why so many people love them. Because when you're reading something at the exact same time as someone else, not only does it offer you a person to discuss your feelings on that book with, it also gives you more insight into the book because you're hearing another person's opinions on it. But also, if you're more of a competitive person, you can make it a little bit of a competition to see who finishes the book first. It's just a fun way to spice up your reading life, and it really can help you get through books a lot quicker if you know that someone else is doing it with you. you. My fourth bit of advice is to switch up the formats that you read in. This is more of a psychological, mental thing, but it really, 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 really does help. If you want to read more, or you feel like you're being burnt out by the amount that you are reading, I highly recommend that you switch formats regularly. So my advice is to always have a physical book on the go, so whether that's a hardcover or a paperback, or one of each if you like, but you also have an ebook, like a Kindle or an iPad or a phone or something like that you can read books digitally, but also audiobooks. I cannot stress how good audiobooks are. A lot of people dismiss audiobooks and say, oh, well, it's not reading. I've got a whole video explaining why I think audiobooks are reading and do count as reading. I'll link a card up there. And audiobooks are such a handy tool for reading because you can listen to them and utilise them at a time where reading a physical book or an ebook may not be an option. Say if you're walking your dog or washing the dishes or drawing something. You don't have the ability to pick up a book and hold it like this. But if you are listening to the book and having other tasks done, you just get through more tasks throughout the day and you'll just generally be more productive. But also just psychologically, having a physical book on the go, an ebook on the go, and an audiobook on the go, you're constantly switching between formats and you're much less likely to get burnt out. And my fifth tip, you may not want to do this, but it is so helpful. And it is setting up a Booktube account. For me, being on Booktube has led me to so many new amazing books and made me read more. Even if you don't actually make videos, if you're constantly watching Booktube content, then you're inspired to read, because watching people screaming at you to read books is not only brilliant motivation, but it also just reminds you about the joy of reading and how fun reading actually is. I always seem to forget whenever I'm in a reading slump how fun reading actually is, but if you're watching someone on Booktube yelling at you to read, it's amazing motivation and it really helps you snap out of that reading slump and get back into the books that you're wanting to read. So if you want, you can make videos to talk about how much you love reading and talk about your favourite books and annoy people in doing so because you're talking about books too much. Doing that can help you read more, and watching other creators' videos makes you think, ooh, they're reading, why am I not reading? And it makes you want to read too. Okay, so just for a little recap, tip number 1 is to stop scrolling on your phone and pick up a damn book. Tip number 2 is to put reading into your daily schedule and make it a priority. Tip number 3 is to do buddy reads or join a book club. Tip number 4 is to switch up the formats of the books that you're reading, especially with audiobooks. And tip number 5 is just to watch Booktube content and subscribe to Other Worlds Than These. Okay, so that is all of my advice on how to read more, how to read faster, and just generally read more efficiently. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a big fat thumbs up, and please consider subscribing for more bookish content from me. All of my social media links are in the description below, and I'll see you next time with another video. Goodbye.